much for joining us for today's conversation. And I'm particularly excited about today's conversation, to be honest. We're going to be having a conversation with the visionary behind FTN Cocoa processors. But before we start that conversation, I would like us to just observe a minute of silence for the original founder, Mr. Abiola Aderounmu, who had worked tirelessly alongside with Mr. Akin Laoye and the rest of the team until his demise. So a minute of silence just to honor his memory for this great work that he started. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. May his soul continue to rest in perfect peace. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Akin Laoye. Mr. Akin Laoye is a Nigerian business executive and the current MD CEO of FTN Cocoa Processors PLC, an agro-allied company that processes cocoa palm kernel. He also sits on the board of Smart Products Nigeria PLC, where he leads the finance and control committee and contributes to the corporate governance committee as well. He's also a member of the Institute of Directors and part of Africa Institute of Science, Policy and Innovation at Obafemi Awolowo University. Mr. Laoye holds a degree in political science, even from the University of Ibadan, and an MBA from the prestigious Lagos Business School. Before joining FTN Cocoa, Mr. Laoye served diligently at the UACN PLC, various business divisions, and he has been a vocal presence on various panels and media platforms, sharing insights into the Nigerian cocoa industry. Without further ado, Mr. Laoye, thank you, and welcome. Thank you for obliging to have this conversation. Can we just give a thumbs up to Mr. Laoye for choosing out of his very, very, very busy schedule to be a part of us today? We are very excited to have you. Thank you so much, sir.
And
thank you.
Thanks for the good job you are doing, in the finance space and in terms of entrepreneurial drive of young people.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So we want to dive into it. We are curious to know what has been your journey, what took you to FTN Cocoa, why have you decided to drive this business all this while despite the turbulent environment in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be your midst and to just share the experience. I was in UAC. I served for about 7 years. And I mean, I was restless about my progress. And let me just put it this way, I was not happy with the way I was moving the career. And I knew it was important to take a decision. Um, I considered about three elements. Number one, I looked at the fact that it was 7 years, and if I've done 7 years, I'm not seeing what I expected to see. Maybe it's a time to vote for my fate. That's number one. Number two, I was just 4 weeks old in marriage, and I felt that if I could take any decision that is drastic, maybe that is the best time to take the decision. I mean, it might sound awkward, but it was just like a calculated thing. And the third thing is I want to I wanted to make my mistakes early and then correct it. I remember I was having a conversation with my boss. He's late now, late Bayoli Gali, who was MD of Airtel, was my supervisor in UAC. And I remember one day we were having a conversation, and he told me, say, hey, it's important that you make your mistakes early, correct yourself, and run in life. And honestly, that was like a prophetic conversation, which is also consistent with what I know from the Bible. Bear your yoke, bear your burden when you are young, So those things I put together, and I resigned from UAC and entered into the streets. My last port of call was the pension fund. I learned a lot from that because I was putting the portfolio together for my boss. So I knew all the investment in equity, real estate, treasury bills, bonds, insurance, and all those kind of things. And I started learning some things there. So from there, I knew that I could do something for myself. I was restless. I knew that so much. That's one of the things that was always driving me. And I tried some things like palm oil business. Officially, I borrowed money from finance house, me and some of my friends. We ran into trouble bringing palm oil from Okitipupa in Ondo State to Lagos to sell at my 12, and then later we now decided that, okay, let us hire dead mills in Delta State. So we ran those mills, make it work, and then ran into trouble again, So, and I now eventually got out. I was doing capital market. I was doing other things just to make sure that we don't run out of pocket. And that was when myself and Mr. Deromu, which we've known each other since 1988, we talk. I meet him, I go to his place, we discuss business and all those kind of things. And I'll say, come on, you have done some palm oil business before, and I've been watching your movement. You can try, cocoa. I didn't want to initially because I felt that would be taking me out of Lagos too much, and I've had so much stories about cocoa. That is a very difficult business, And he said, okay, no, this is it. We struck a deal. I said, the thing is that I do not really want to be collecting salaries. I will now said, okay, let's do it this way. We'll establish stipend for ourselves, and then we'll do some profit share, And then I said, okay, I have to consider some things. One of the things I said is, can I take a look at the balance sheet? And I think I remember that the turnover then, maybe size was like 600 million. I said, look, if I'm going to make anything out of this, we need to stretch this balance sheet. He said, well, you're young. If you want to stretch it, stretch it. I said, we have to stretch it. He said, you guy. I said, because that's the only way we can make some money. He said, fine. And then we were doing the thing. We started out as tollers. What I mean by that, we were, leasing factories. Cocoa business has been very tough from the get-go. There are many of those factories that were not working, even government owned. They didn't have enough finance to drive them. So that was the strategy he started with, got money from the banks and took some capacity, run it on toll, we call it tolling, and then process the goods and sell. Started out as Stanmark, and then we worked at Ileluji, we worked at Coop Cocoa, which is now John Vent. We worked at Ede, we worked at CIL in Lagos. I mean, we did all those things. And then as we were doing it, I told him, I said, look, we're having some challenges. I said, look, don't you think we should have a factory? He said, oh, you don't know nothing. Factory? That's a big problem. in Nigeria. But you see, we were able to convince him, and he said, well, if you are ready to do the runs, if you are ready to do the tough job, and besides, this is my life, because you don't have money to drive this size of business, but you are coming to tell me now you have the energy. So there was a balance here. We needed to strike an equilibrium. You don't have money, you have energy. I said, since you have the money, he told me, he said, the only thing now is that I have to pledge my assets. And that is my life. I said, pledge it. Nothing will be lost, And then he pledged it, and we got funds to start the factory. Our plan was to do something little, because we just felt that it's good to start little by little and everything. But it became bigger than we anticipated. We didn't get the engineers who did the consultancy for us. They didn't get it right in terms of the kind of answer that was given. It was when we got to the bank. The bank now said, you must allow the people that manufactured the machines to install. Then we spoke to the manufacturers. They said they don't, but they have consultants. So we got a consultant in the United Kingdom, CCC consultants, and they came in and told us that you thought you have a small factory, but this is what you have. You need extra money to build it. So we had to pledge those collateral. We started it out. We could no longer move forward because we wanted to do it alone. And we ran into a dead end. And then it became a big deal, a big issue. So we now met some of our friends in the capital market. We met Otumba Wale Jubril. We met Wale Abegude. Of course, Otumba Wale Jubril spoke to Wale Abegude about these young guys who went to start a factory and they can't make progress anymore, and then that is how the journey into the public space came about. So that's pretty much the story of FTN, and we're operating in an environment that we didn't have it. We knew Nigerian environment was tough, but we didn't anticipate it to be this tough because we expected that the environment, should, reward hard work. There was no parental support, if you understand what I mean by that. No godfather, no. We just were doing the things based on the numbers, knowledge of the business, and believing that when we present these things, they will attract funding. But that is not the way it works sometimes. It doesn't just work that way. So that's just pretty much a kind of background to where we are. The company has gone through a lot. Maybe I should pause at this point and allow you to ask your questions, and then we'll put more light to things. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, sir. You said something about listing on the stock exchange, and reading your profile, it's obvious that you're very big on governance. Can you throw a bit of light on how that has played out in your journey in FTN Cocoa before we go back into the main issue?
Sometimes in life, when you go through challenges, it makes you understand some of the things you need to do. I'm grateful to God that we ran with integrity. So it made it easy for us to say, hey guys, this is us. Because when you're going to the public, you are saying, come and see me through, see finish. You understand? Okay. So we pretty much ran like that. There was nothing to hide other than the business secret or the key success factor. We have to keep that, of course, because of competition and those kind of things. So it was that in us that paved way for our ability to be listed in stock exchange. We didn't have enough money to proceed. It was going to be like a dead end. And then when some of the financial advisors came into the picture, they said, look, if you are ready to open ownership, then you can have it. Since you have your books, your books appear okay, we just get professionals to look into it. So they got in professionals, they checked their books, make sure that governance issues are strengthened because of the private business, things like minutes of the board meetings, decisions, how decisions are arrived at, and everything. We got reporting accountant to take a look. Of course, because we're like private, There are many things that were not necessarily fit for the public in terms of what they expect in terms of governance. We're able to get those things in place, and we're willing to say, hey, where we have gaps, this gap should be filled, and we'll be fine. So that's how it became easy for us to meet the requirement for being listed. Of course, it's not an easy thing. You have to go through all those. So that's how
Absolutely.
it happened. Yeah, that's how it happened.
Okay, so talking about the journey of FTN Cocoa, you've gone through so many transitions. You started out as a trading business, you had your factory, you diversified, you've had many transitions. Can you take us through how you were able to weather those transition moments? Did you ever feel like giving up?
Oh, Nigeria will make you feel like giving up. That's one thing that, because you wonder sometimes that how come this kind of initiative is not given the right, attention. But again, maybe that's how it is globally, I would say, because I have come to realize that you don't even beat yourself too much, or you beat your nation too much. We have our bad side, but maybe we are going through a process, even though it's slow to some of us. That's the thing I would say about the Nigerian state. FTN today is like a cat. Somebody saw me some time ago and he said, "You are like a cat with 9 lives." And that, I mean, number one, people know the cocoa space. The cocoa space is tough, very tough. But I have a current partner, an American, says he uses a word that it is difficult, it is complicated, but not difficult. Yeah, because there are so many things you need to understand about the trade. It's a commodity, of course. Commodities have its own behaviors, how you must handle it. Otherwise, you just run into trouble. So that's pretty much what it has been. It has been tough. So the metamorphosis is the story. We started out as basically it was Mr. Deromu who started it out. Okay, was working with Lead Merchant Bank then, who gave out funds to do tolling in some of those factories, and then that was going on when I came on board. He invited me and told me this is what we should do. And then we started looking at the balance sheet, and we discovered that we need to grow it. That's the way there'll be anything to share. Okay. And then we got into another bank who literally supported us. And in those days, we chased out some of those multinationals out of Ileluji, to be able to have the space, because we had enough money to run the factory. And of course, we had our problems with the market. I remember there was a time we had to meet the former president of Obasanjo, and the big deal was we had a large stock of our product unsold, and that is cocoa cake. And this thing has a shelf life 2 years, and we're almost at the 2 years. That time when money had value, it's in billions, and we met him and we had to tell him our problems. That was one. Banks were scared. They felt that the company will die and everything, but we did not. Somehow, help came. We were able to run it. And then we started the factory. Again, also, we got to a point like a dead end. Again, help came when we did our private placement, and it was a very successful private placement. I remember it was oversubscribed, and they were asking me if we're going to extend the scope. I said, no, give the people back their money. That was a mistake in business that I will never make again if I have a chance. Okay, because again, we, in the growth the growth projection, we should have accommodated that money, and that will have also helped the story. But you see, again, like I said, we try to do things correctly. We try to manage the risk, calculated risk at that, so that we don't run into trouble. The trouble we're running from, we kept seeing it. That's what you're trying to run from trouble, but each time, no matter how you behave yourself, the trouble is there. So for people who want to go into business, you will always have trouble. I tell you, but the thing is this, you will to overcome depending on how you run your things. We ran with a lot of tenacity, a lot of energy, and we made sure we're doing the right things. For example, in cocoa space, it's easy to run into trouble when you have contract, especially forward contract. And then you suddenly discover that You are not able to do it because of market forces. We didn't run away from those things. We confronted it. Many times we told our buyers to say, listen, we use a term in cocoa, we call it washing out of contract. If we feel that this is so bad, so let's wash it out. Otherwise, we can say, okay, let's see how we can walk it through. And that is maybe you take some quantities to, let me put it this way. For example, if you are owing 100 tons, and then if you are going to do that 100 tons, that can put you into trouble. We can ask for more contract, maybe sometimes 200. I will make it 2 for 1, something like that. Those are the kind of things you see in commodity space, in cocoa space, that makes it exciting if you have people who are willing to support you, okay? And you can get people who are willing to support you if you are well behaved in the trade. So what we do is that we don't run away from contracts, to dodge it or to go and liquidate one company and start another company. No. We have been consistent, same name all the way. So when you see TN, it is Fantastic Traders Nigeria. Okay, so that's the way it has been. And then we got to that stage of being listed. We got to the stage of the factory. We ran into trouble. After we established the factory, it was 10,000 tons. We needed to make it 20,000 tons because of, I'll call that what can make us visible in the international market. We knew that we needed some strategic partnership. And our partners were saying, look, we cannot have partnership with you if you're tiny. If you're a bit bigger, we can talk about some partnership. So we went to 20,000 tons. We needed to supply Nestle. The Nigerian demography was going up and everything. And that is how we decided to expand. Most of our support has actually come from the outside this country. We got support from the United States, from our partners there. We got support from Norway. Norfund has been a tremendous support to where we are at this time.
Can I quickly jump in here, which is to talk about this issue of running business with integrity? You've said a lot about how partnership has always come through for you. How do you link how you've done business with how you've always sort of gotten the support you needed at the time you want to, get that support? What role did the way you ran your business have to do with how you were able to secure the right partnership at the right time?
Yeah, I think it's transparency and motivation. Because transparency, of course, if you run with integrity and then you're transparent about it. One thing I would say to people who want to do business, I know, that there are two schools of thought in the behavior of the entrepreneur. Some people believe that you have to look big, behave big, then you attract the money. For me, I would say that's the very dangerous gamble, because at the end of the day, to run into trouble. So what we did, we are very modest in our approach, because we are always cost sensitive. And then we make sure that we run with integrity. If there's a problem, we engage. We got this problem. This is how it is. And then if it's the trade, if you are supplying something, you make sure you supply right. You don't want to cut corners. One of the key things that really affect people is cutting corners. We make sure our measurements are, because cocoa is about weight. We make sure the declaration of the quality is right. You understand? Because again, if I'm declaring supply of cocoa butter, for example, the normal standard for good cocoa butter is 1.75 free fatty acid. Anything above that will attract discount in the terminal market. Okay. Now, some people they may have a situation of having 2.5 free fatty acid, 2.5% free fatty acid, and they now put a certificate of 1.75. Those are some of the nuance that speaks to who you are, your person, your character, and everything. The same thing with the cocoa cake. That's what we call the total plate count or aerobic plate count, which determines the level of bacteria in the product. There's a standard, international standard. People sometimes, for some reason, aerobic plate count can be very high. Sometimes 20,000, sometimes too numerous to count, TMs, something like that. Some people will adjust it to the normal correction. And then when it gets to the destination, they will do their test. And they find out that this thing is not a good quality. Okay. I remember there was a time we did an export. The goods got to the United States. And I was told that there was a problem with the quality. I said, which problem? They said, okay, it was that time when there was crisis at the Nigerian port. And then containers would be there forever, So they now said, okay, they found one roach in the container, not in the product, in the container. And now they will be able, and I said, no. I said, I'm sure, because we do our fumigation before we put in the goods and then we seal. I said, I'm dead sure that that roach is not from us. In any case, if you think you are not sure, take it to the laboratory. Let's contest it. Let's take out the roach and let them do an analysis of the origin of that roach. I mean, cockroach. I said, if you do that, if it is from Africa or from Nigeria, then we'll be ready to take the haircut or whatever you want to do to discount. Otherwise, no. And it became an argument. At the end of the day, there was nothing like it's a Nigerian roach. I think when we gave them those kind of things, and they know that we are like that, so they gave us a full price, because otherwise they would just blacklist. We knew the implication that we're on trial. We're on trial in terms of our sincerity. We're on trial about our own country. Just take anything. Sometimes Nigerians, we get afraid and we just want to allow it to pass. And then you now say, okay, sorry, take a discount, this and that, this and that. But no. So from that, they've known the way we do the business, and that is kind of energy that we attract up to this time, and even locally too. I don't think I've come to a point where I'm present. We are being used as for laundry activities or those kind of stuff, because that's not who we are, and that we don't attract such, and we are okay regardless of the pain we are going through.
This is very interesting. So as a business, setting your mission and your vision and your core values is very critical to the journey ahead of you, and sticking to it irrespective of what goes on with you. Let me take you a little bit into, I've had conversations. I remember having a conversation with one of the cocoa processors, and one of the challenges that I've been told is the aggregation from the cocoa farmers. How has your journey been aggregating from smallholder farmers, or do you own your own farms? How do you make sure that you have enough for your plant at any point in time?
Okay, we don't own our own farms, because for me, it's another business. And it's a big business. So if you do not have the capacity to drive that, you don't go there. Aggregation, very interesting. It's a tough one, because the Nigerian cocoa space is deregulated. Unlike Ghana, unlike Cote d'Ivoire. In Ghana, government take hold of the cocoa like we do for crude oil here. And they now find a way of distributing. For example, factories must be fed in Ghana before trading. Very important. Same thing in Cote d'Ivoire. But in Nigeria, it's deregulated, which means it's a free for all. All the multinationals, they have their presence here one way or the other. So we, the factory people, and the multinational merchants are fighting for the little cocoa that is available. So it's very tough. But you see, again, your practice helps a lot. We're just coming back after some time, and we're hoping to really be visible in this cocoa season. But I'll tell you the strategy. Number one, we are open to the people we deal with. Once you are buying from them, those farmers or those local buying agents, we tell them, if your cocoa, you have to witness your cocoa analysis, and please, we require you to be honest with us. Even if you choose not to be honest, we'll be honest with ourselves. We're going to test your cocoa, and we want you to witness it. Now, if there is a departure from the spec, we tell them to perfect it. What that means is that bring more and blend it up. Look, at the end of the day, there's something about cocoa. No cocoa is wasted. They will say it's bad cocoa. What is bad cocoa? Put it in the machine, you grind it out and get a product. So we get these guys, and they now see that we are very considerate. So that it's not as if when you are trading, you come to Lagos with your goods, they tell you it's off spec, and they discount it or ask you to take it back. That's a phenomenal loss for the farm, for those people who sell. So that makes us to gain some confidence. And then some of these people come to our space. They come to us. They hear when we are buying, they hear we are buying, and they by themselves even come sometimes. Okay. So we don't like to advance money to farmers or to buy it. We don't do that, because we are not a microfinance bank. I mean, we don't have what it takes to be able to, we don't have a license to give money out, So we rather that supply the cocoa, we pay you. So we also stick to our words. For example, if we tell you we're going to pay in 24 hours, then we pay in 24 hours. We will not go to ask for cocoa when we don't have money. Because we hear that some people are owed by the buyer and all those kind of things. We try to avoid those dramas. So if we tell you, for example, you are buying this, we get, and then once we agree the price, we agree the price. But we also let you know that, look, if your cocoa is off spec, then we will follow the standard of discount. So that way, there's some kind of confidence, and for that reason, so far, we get the cocoa. One thing I tell people is that cocoa usually follow money. Money for hand, back for ground. If you have your money, you will get your cocoa. That's the thing. Yeah, so we now also spread the tentacles. We get cocoa from everywhere. The place we've not been really working to get cocoa from is Ecom. I've done some cocoa from Ecom, but it's far. So you look at the cost of freighting it, bringing it from Ecom to Lagos to Ibadan, that's a lot of money. So for that reason, we focus on the Southwest. We look at attachment areas or Ife, we look at Ekiti, Lesha, we look at Ikire, and then Ondo, and sometimes Edo State. So that's the kind of way. But somehow we get it, and we are confident that we'll get the cocoa we want, because our capacity is moderate enough to get what we want. Nigeria is doing 300,000 tons per annum. Our factory is 20,000 tons. So no matter, we should be able to. It's a strategy to make sure that we get what we need easily. And again, don't forget that cocoa is very expensive. It's the highest price soft commodity on earth today. Very, very expensive, and you need high working capital to drive your operations.
Which brings me to this issue about big, hairy, audacious goals. At the end of the day, when I was having the preliminary conversation, when you were mentioning the kind of funds that you require to run a business like FTN Cocoa, I was wondering, how do you get to sleep at night? How does a business person develop the kind of boldness that it takes to drive this kind of business, basically?
Okay, so one thing we normally say, I remember what late Mr. Dirimo will say, is that he says some people come into the business as, how do I put it? He says that if you want to be in cocoa, you must be a career cocoa person. That's how you get that. Which means you mustn't be somebody that just want to do it and miss. Because if you want to do it and miss, it's what you meet at the gate that will determine how far you go. We are in for the long haul. In any case, if you have invested in a factory, you don't expect that you will just be there as a short-term person. So we have developed that attitude and that kind of appetite. So there's a lot of resilience. There's a lot of knowing that this is it's a long haul, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Many people come in there as sprinters. They want to make the money. They hear that it's high numbers, it's profitable. They want to make the money and spend it that way. In cocoa, I don't think you are not. If you make money, you better spend it wisely, because there could be some times where you will see some negative, headwinds, and you have to really manage it if you are a career cocoa person. So what I would tell people is, whatever you want to do, make sure you are there for a long haul. It's a marathon. It's not for, Nigeria, our basic problem is instant gratification. We want to get now and want to show off. So if you are making the money now, you don't need to show off with that. Get the money, invest it wisely. And then the days where the lean period, pretty much like the Joseph strategy, you use the 7 fat years to finance the 7 lean years. That's what cocoa requires. That's the way it can work. And you have the right kind of skill set. Because nowadays, it's a highly sophisticated commodity, that has a strong presence in the commodity market. It's a soft trade market. You see major brokers involved in it. So there's the soft side, which is the paper trade, and there's the physicals. Okay, so you need to understand how those two sectors works to be able to do well. You must understand your numbers as well. You must understand, you must know the trade. You must really go, you must be schooled in it if you don't want to run into trouble. And of course, you have the right kind of network that helps you in the journey. It's a global commodity. Every part of the world needs cocoa, and you really have to make sure you have that reach, either by alliance or by your deliberate actions to get to those places to see how you can relate with the users of the product.
So, talking about international trades, there are conversations that people tend to have about how Nigeria is negatively perceived. How have you been able to engineer your business in a way that has not impacted negatively on how you're consummating your deals?
Yeah, that is real. Nigeria has a very bad press outside because of our behaviors. Like I said, when it is good, people want to be there. When it is bad, they want to walk away. I see people run away from contracts. Some people liquidate their own companies and set up another company, all those kind of stuff. All those are schemes that doesn't make sense. We didn't run our business that way, and we don't run it that way. We face it. We are there. We make sure we are good ambassadors of Nigeria in terms of the way we do. If we say this is it is what it is. Even though they blame us in Nigeria, don't forget that these people out there, they're also crooked, So it takes two to tango. It takes two to tango. But when they see that you are doing it straight, then they work with you, and over time they come to trust you. Let me say this, that before this alliance came, strategic partnership, there was a lot of due diligence done on us, massively paid for, unknown to us. And they saw you see, the elders have a saying that character is like smoke. Interpreting it in a literally, character, or something like that. If you are a bad person, it will speak, it will show up one day. So, but we have known that, because you see, cocoa is well governed. Cocoa is governed by the Federation of Cocoa Commerce, the FCC. Look, if you mess up with the trade, you can be blacklisted, and it will speak anywhere on earth. You understand? And even if you go and liquidate and set up another company, they will know the person behind it one day, someday, sometimes, somehow. So why do you need to hide behind one finger? That's the kind of that we recognize early in time. So we're able to put our head. I remember, let me tell you, it's as tough as there was a time we had a contract. I remember I entered that deal at $770, and then we couldn't deliver because we didn't have working capital. We were, they call it speculation. I don't want to call it speculation. It was an opportunity that we saw then, and we said, let's get into it, thinking that the Nigerian banks will back us up, only to come back home. I remember that deal was struck in Barcelona, and I came back home, and the banks they were coming with stiff conditions that made it difficult to get working capital. That put us in default, and then that default was there. These guys held on to us for a long time, but when we got support eventually, and each of the time we acknowledged that we defaulted and we are ready to work it out. Eventually, that contract was washed out, sometimes in 2016, $1.1 million. We had to pay it because it was the difference between this $700 and the price on board at that time. Because that condition, and that's a major loss. That's what somebody will want to use to buy a car or something, or go to, but we had to bite the bullet, and we took it that way. And that's the reason why we can still talk in the ecosystem of cocoa anywhere. We can go to cocoa dinner, we can do trade, we can want to talk to anybody, so that's the kind of thing. And then people will know you at the end of the day, and they will speak about you, they'll talk about you. So because of that, in the course of trade, people will say, what about these guys? They know that, I think they are steady, they are going their ways. I think you can deal with them. So that's the reason why we still have this conversation. When these partners will come to us, they sampled other factories, other businesses before they eventually settled for us. It was what they observed that made that happen. And that has still been the winning point, because now the company will have been forgotten, to be honest. But for all these things, each time there is trouble, each time we run into some turbulence, we get people to come in to say, hey, we are ready to rescue. We're going to support you. And that's it. And we're also open, because one of the things that kills people in business is when you are so excessively secretive. You're not transparent. Nobody wants to commit to you when you're not transparent. That's just what I would say. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Can I take you a little bit to the running of the business itself, people problems? Entrepreneurs always complain that finding the right people who have your mindset, your culture, your values is tough in Nigeria. How have you been able to solve the talent problem?
Well, they say it, but I always believe that your own, these people, talent also observe you, you know.
Hmm.
So many times, I'll be honest with you, it's not as if we don't have some delinquents in the process, in the journey, but I'll tell you, look at the crisis we faced. These talents stood by us. I still have them right with us.
Wow.
Yeah, because you see, they saw transparency, they saw sincerity. And so we got to a point where we're owing massively in months. You know, we paid everything. And in the times where when people didn't just jump ship like that, you know, I mean, those of them that were really having hard times when we're owing, we had conversation. And I just said, look, oh, I cannot help you right now. Lost like Naomi in the Bible. I say, hey, go, we release you. But some of them say, no, when it was good, we're together, we'll be there, we'll salvage it together. So I still believe that, yes, they might say Nigerians are bad, but Nigerians are very good at mimicking. They will, if you are a bad guy, they will take that badness. If you are a good guy, I'm sure they will take the good guy. So that's the kind of thing that I in my own experience, you know. So I'm so proud of the team. I love them so much, and I don't joke with them. So they know when we are lean, that, oh, this is a difficult time. They see it in our lifestyle. Do you imagine when, if you are the MD or you are a director and people are suffering and you are living this verbose big life and everything, they will be wondering what's going on. You know, once we don't pay, they know the reason why. And once there's funding, we pay them. That's what we do, you know. So Nigerians could be bad, true. You have people who will not be honest, they want to play tricks. We have some one or two delinquents, and they can be truly, and I would say fantastically bad. I remember, let me tell you this, I just feel I should say it. I remember some time ago when we were processing palm kernel oil, and we suddenly discovered that we are not making money. And then we were wondering why. We had deployed everything that we needed to do to make money, namely the kind of kernel we buy. We have what we call hammer mills to crush the kernel before we put it through the mills. So we're expecting a yield. But the thing was not hard enough. Until one day we discovered that some of those staff, they were so ingenious to the point of they had somebody behind the fence of the factory. So when the oil is produced, they will put it into Ragolis water, the 1.5 liter big bottle, and then they will pass it from one person to another person to behind the fence, and there was a keg behind the fence where they were collecting the oil. So once when the keg is full, they take it away to go and sell, and it's a lot of money. So we now discovered that even though we had done our checks, the sources of the kernel, the inventory, and the release of it to the factory floor, everything was intact, but something was going wrong. Some of those criminal-minded staff were saying that, oh, it's because of the rain, it's because of this. They started creating diversionary reasons why we are having that situation until we were caught, that kind of thing. Of course, when we caught them, that fellow was fired. And we have a rule, they know us for that. If you are caught stealing, you go to court. If you are found wanting, you go to jail. It's simple. It might be 3 months jail, it might be 6 months, then you become an ex-convict. So it's up to you. They know that our tolerance for such kind of habit is we have zero tolerance for that, and you can use 1 million to address the problem of 10,000 naira, just to make a statement. And that's that we have some kind of sanity. So far, so good. And for the avoidance of that, if anybody will want to test our will, saying, you know, we'll deal decisively with that fellow.
I like that. I really like that. So let's talk a little bit about succession planning. I know that you started this journey with Mr. Adiromu standing right by you, and the two of you had a working arrangement. But at some point, he was taken away. How did you navigate and continue the journey afterwards? And how have you now ensure that you have a pipeline that can ensure that there will always be continuity in FTN cocoa?
All right, thank you. It was a tough one. This is one thing I get emotional about. I mean, when it happened, yeah, because we actually worked for 32 years, night and day. No single day without communication. It was just like a brotherly relationship, you know. It was tough for me, I will tell you, because there was no opportunity to say bye-bye. There were a lot of things in the pipeline. I remember I had to literally ask one of the sons to give me his iPad and let's find a way of opening it. So many communication was lost with his death because we had a lot of conversation. We conversed. So I said, this is crazy. It was tough. I remember one day I just literally hit the road heading towards Ibadan, and I later realized that exactly where am I headed? By the way, I thought of because we worked together. There was just nobody in between, and we had a working understanding. And by the way, before he passed, he was already preparing for, retirement. That's the plan. Talking about succession. Okay, you stay in the saddle, and then we'll doing our things and everything. So it's I thank God for the way the business, the way we ran it, and the understanding. And now we're here. What we said from the get-go is we want to build a business that outlives us. Okay, so that we were using examples of Unilever, Cadbury, that if this company was set up donkey years and they're still around, that is the kind of thing it should be. And to do that kind of a thing, you must also be ready for sacrifices, openness. You understand? The way it is now is for us to make sure we are so intentional. We had some period of darkness, especially after it passed, and then we're trying to set up things and everything. There were uncertainty and everything, but thankfully we've passed that stage. And the next phase is, we are mindful of succession. It starts with building a strong corporate governance in the organization. Once you have that, then people can see through the kind of people, the kind of talents that we get, and then the kind of people we feel we can hand over, the business over to. Let me tell you something. The greatest problem in Nigeria is principal-agent relationship.
Absolutely.
The agents in Nigeria, many of them are not straightforward. Cocoa gives you room for a lot of manipulation. When I mean manipulation, the way we do our trade in Nigeria, we price things. Like when we go to the market, you want to buy tomatoes, they say it's 5 naira. You say, make it 4 naira now. They say, 4 naira, we can't make it 450. So please make it 4 naira. And the person say, okay, because of you're the first person to trade today, let me do 4 naira. Okay, bring 4 naira. I say, no, can you just make it 380 now? You should look at the way the economy is going. After all, we are not using dollars to buy. Those kind of way we trade. That's what we do. As much as cocoa has this sophistication, you can know the price when you Google all those kind of things. Yes, this bit of our ways of trade. Now, if your agent is dishonest, he will be milking you from that lacuna. So that's the kind of thing you see. And also you see that also in the forex side, when you export. Thankfully, thank God for the forex regime. And track it. That's for me. Again, that itself brings another issue of principal agency and all those kind of things. So as far as we are concerned, we believe in strong corporate governance and process. We believe that will throw out who will eventually be able to earn the right place in the system to take the baton of leadership. Don't forget, we have a foreign investor that is strongly present as well. Their input to is here. So maybe in the years ahead, we hope to get local talents. It's possible to also see talents from abroad that might be managers of the business. So we'll see, fingers crossed.
Interesting. When you were talking about how cocoa is traded, what are your thoughts around the commodities exchanges that have been established? At least I know about the effects, and I also know about the Lagos Commodities Exchange, and I know you have a strong background in stockbroking and all that. What are your thoughts about how this is going to impact the commodities play in Nigeria?
Well, I think what they just need, I speak a lot with the GMD of FX. We've done some things together. I just tell them that, look, just make sure you play to the rules by yourselves, and make sure you're also able to manage the loopholes, because if you have all the good intentions and there are loopholes, those loopholes will mess up your intentions and you may not be able to go far. So I told them, make sure you can pressure test your processes, making sure that they meet international standards. Your agents must be pressure tested. That's pretty much because the effect people deals with the physicals as well. They have warehouses and they aggregate some of these things. But for the Lagos Commodity Exchange, again, standard processes, pretty much we have succeeded. Our Nigerian Stock Exchange is good enough. We've got experience in that business. And I think following such models and indeed what other best practices in other markets will help the process. These are the kind of things that we are having. There are some sectors that require specialism. I'm impressed at what I'm saying right now, the character, the kind of professionalism deployed into the central bank, for example. I think I'm proud of it. I'm happy with the way the finance ministry is doing their things. I'm happy with what I'm seeing in tax space. You okay? Because you see the right people taking right decisions, even decisions that we read in textbooks and we see as worked out in other markets. Okay? So in the same vein, I believe government should be patient to take a look into that sector. Look at the guys in the value chain, the farmers. Credible farmers with high capacity, the processors, the if you like, the buying agents. I don't even know why buying agents are there anyway, because these are the guys that are just they're just fleecing.
They're the ones that inflate the prices.
These are rent seekers. they have the least investment, and they will say they have investment. The question is that their skin is the skin of if the tree breaks or something, the branch of the tree breaks, the bud slides away. That's who they are. They're portfolio guys.
They're not invested at all.
If there's any problem, they'll just disappear and they'll go to another tree. Some of us cannot disappear. Where will I go with a 20,000 tons factory that's almost worth 30 billion? I can't, and you cannot even use it to do any other thing. It's just a specialized machine for cocoa only. You can't say you want to put kernel there. You can't say you want to put ginger there. No. So that's how complex it is.
And it's interesting how much potential that our commodities trade has for us. Countries like Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, it's interesting what role that cocoa trade globally is doing for those countries in terms of foreign exchange earnings. Someone has a question here that was sent to me, says that they would like to understand what your plans are for utilizing artificial intelligence and all the technological advancements that we're seeing today as you expand. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about the future of FTN Cocoa. What do you think what role do you think technology would play? And what are the challenges you foresee as we move into the future, especially with regards to FTN?
Technology innovation is what we are really focusing on. And let me speak a bit about artificial intelligence. As much as I like it, for us in Africa, it's going to lead to a lot of job attrition. I hope we know that. When we start embracing what we don't have, it's going to create a lot. Because look, if I want to deal on artificial intelligence basis, it simplifies my finance function, for example. It simplifies it, and I don't need so much people, to be honest. And I don't need high capacity professionals to deal with it, because I can use one person and deploy the artificial intelligence and I'll get my results. Same thing if you look at the laboratory. You can use artificial intelligence to drive a lot of things, and you reduce the number of human beings that you have in the system. And the same thing with the production, even the engineering, because even nowadays, sometimes when we have issues with the machine, we just relate with the manufacturers through the program PLCs, and they deploy one or two commands, and then they give instruction that this is where the problem is, like diagnostic software. So we are concerned about that, and we are working towards that direction. That's important because our partner, of course, being an American, That's they lead in technology in terms, so that's important. Even in financing, I see a situation where some great things might happen, and it will change the landscape and put even the financiers in a put them in a difficult position to run for their money. If you start thinking technology, thinking the things we are seeing, artificial intelligence, crypto, blockchains, some things can really happen that can make fund raise. It can change the landscape for fundraising, and that will mean a lot of fight for even the traditional financial institutions. So just imagine if we're in that space and funds are being raised by some units somewhere in California, and then I don't need to see any Nigerian bank, and the thing is deployed, and I have access to the funds in the wallet, and I use that money to buy my cocoa, and I do my business. So see, it's interesting what we might see the world unfold in the world. It's interesting. Honestly, we are ready for it. We are ready for it.
Interestingly, this thing you said about funding and the potential disruption that AI might have in that space. What I've realized in recent times is that Nigerian banks have not played their intermediation role as much as we would like to see it impact on development and growth of businesses. But a lot of businesses are beginning to raise serious funding off the shores.
Outside. That's right.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
And when I was having that conversation with you, your own strategic investors are foreign funds as well. And one cannot help but wonder, what is the role of our banks in intermediation? You mentioned earlier that you had a transaction that you had sealed in Barcelona. You flew back home to try and fund it, and then they messed you up.
That's it.
So I wonder whether that's the reason why you're looking externally. Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, we have gone through I think our approach to financing is still largely traditional in Nigeria. For example, what I expect is this, and I got that learning when we were trying to source money from Afrexim Bank. There's a lot of things around structured trade, and there are a lot of exotics, there are a lot of things you can create to fund business without all these traditional go and bring your great grandmother, tie your leg, tie your hand, all those kind of things, and drain your blood and put it in one test tube, and poison it if they feel that you are not doing well. Those are traditional things that's going on. See, I suspect that if care is not taken, they themselves, and maybe they will respond. I think Nigeria is such a large country, and the opportunities are still there. That's why the banks are not really bending backwards. Now, when you have to also, let me tell you something. There are a lot of external financing coming to Nigeria. Why? Because there's a point of saturation in their market. So they create. I remember I met somebody recently, and he said, "Look, we can provide funds. It's not about your collateral. It's about we look at the end to end of the business, and kind of ring fence it, digitally, and also manage the aspect of the physical asset. So you can see a situation whereby somebody can raise the money for you if you behave yourself. One thing the international market wants is your transparency, your governance. Once it's in place, the likelihood of raising funds outside is high than Nigeria. Because Nigeria is still about who you know. They don't trust you. They will. I mean, it's funny that outsiders trust us than the insiders.
Than the insiders themselves.
Yes,
and
it's funny. It's funny because it stuns me because I've seen people, Americans, first time in Africa, coming to Ibadan because of our trade. People from Norway coming to Ibadan, including the ambassador, to see what we're doing. And then you see one executive in Nigeria, carrying shoulders like a crab, and kind of stuff. So, the way the world is so small now, and some of these things might change. And I really will congratulate the young ones who are smart, because it means that if they do things correctly, they will not be stuck like we were when we were trying to source funds. Things can happen for them. So there's hope. Technology will change, is a game changer as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you very much, sir. Before I go on to what you have to say for, the younger businesses, there's a question here. It says, I've been thinking a lot about decentralized production recently. It seems that globally there is a trend of cutting the middlemen out and facing end customers directly using digital platforms.
That's right.
I also think that I also think of the electronic foreign exchange management system enclosing the information asymmetry, which feeds middleman arbitrage.
Yeah, that's right.
Is this the right moment to revive the 20th century playbook for commodity management? Or are there other opportunities which could allow producers to capture more value?
Yeah, this is spot on. This guy is speaking to what's going on. And like I said, technology will narrow down so many things. And that's why if your strategy is rent seeking, well, you don't have a sustainable strategy, because very soon you will see some things happening. You know what's going on? Even some of the guys who are using the product, they want to deal with the origin. These days we speak about traceability, okay? You know, and it doesn't give opportunities for the middlemen, you know, because so technology will change things, and that's the future. It's already here. I mean, I have situation whereby some of the products we produce is felt in a cocoa shop, cocoa beverage shop in New York, okay, with QR code technology. Okay, we are deploying those things. We can trace where we got our cocoa from. We'll trace it to the inventory in the factory. We trace it to the production line, and we trace it to the finished good. And when it gets out, it's exported. The QR code is there to the factory that produces the beverage or the chocolate, and then they also have it to the product. Do you get? So, and then this thing does not allow middlemen, because middlemen are gathering from different clusters and all those kind of things. So the lifespan for the middlemen is very short. It's very short in the commodity space. So and I think whoever wants to go in that space should just be thinking of the right positioning in the value chain. Position yourself correctly, and then don't be on the rent-seeking mode, because everybody's come to know that middlemen are just screaming the profit out of people who have invested their life and their resources. They have not done so much of that. Yes, they can get money to drive it because they take advantage of the weakness of some of these people. Even for what they do to the farmers, I think very soon that might end. You know, once the farmers once they are able to get their liberty, they will not, because they take advantage of the farmers. They give them money to buy chemicals, to buy seedlings, to do this, to pay school fees, and then take advantage of them buying the cocoa at a lower price, and then they sell at a high price. These are the ways they make their money.
So is there any plan? Oh, sorry, sir.
Again.
No, I was going to ask that, is there any plan for FTN to automate that sourcing? Do you think our farmers, with the penetration of mobile telephony, do you think that they are at that point where, in terms of your sourcing, you can begin to cut out the middle level? I mean,
some of them are now behaving that way. Some of them walk up to us. We made them to have a factory tour to know what's going on, see what's going on. This is your cocoa. This is what happens to it. And some of them just walk to us and say, we want to deal directly with you. It's just starting. And I think...
so do you have plans to have a platform, maybe an electronic platform that can make this easier? Do you think that the market...
things like that are in the pipeline. We're trying to work out some things around that to make sure they have a sustainable life. Because at the end of the day, this thing we're talking about is the sustainability of the farmer. And then we should get to a point we talk about the sustainability of the processor.
Interesting. Now, Onyeko Teriba, that's the same person that asked the first question, said, also, I'm curious about your thoughts on the existential threat to cocoa production coming from climate crisis. In the short term, tight supply is driving prices to new highs. In the long term, available land with suitable weather conditions for cocoa production is diminishing. In Nigeria, which has historically exploited cocoa production less than its West African counterparts, is Nigeria, which has historically exploited cocoa production less than its West African counterparts, set to benefit or lose out in this scramble? Essentially, there's challenges around the climate change. There's challenges around limited arable land. So what this person is asking is that we have not been as, if you like, exploitative as some of the other African countries have been. Do you think that we might be able to take a better stage at this point in time with all of these existential threats?
Yeah, honestly, our problem in Nigeria is the Dutch disease. I mean, the oil made us to lose our focus. Because I don't know why Nigeria is not yet at the level of Ghana when it comes to cocoa production. We have the land and we have the people. But because of Dutch disease, people want to get rich quick. People are not ready to go to the farm. It's only now that a bag of cocoa is about 1 million naira now. So you see many excited people, they want to go into cocoa. It's funny, but they will have to wait, pay their dues for 2 years, 3 years before. But it's still a good thing. And I will speak to young people, young entrepreneurs going through it. Talking about climate change, yes, there's climate change. But again, if we try to do more, there are some things that can also help us to conquer climate change. You see, our problem in Nigeria is our lack of, or Africa, lack of readiness to really confront some of our challenges. I remember I was a member of the African Institute of Science and Policy Innovation of the Obafemi Awolowo University, and we were discussing something in one of our meetings, and it was that how come in Africa we don't seem to find a way of responding to some of our challenges? Our conversation started with the issue of COVID. Now, it was thought that COVID will slaughter Africans, that in the streets of Africa, you will see corpses and everything, but we were not slaughtered. Now, and then one of the professors in that room, we had about maybe 12 professors, and they were saying that, so if care is not taken post-COVID, it is the Western world that will tell us how we overcame COVID in Africa. Very sad. So putting that at the back of my mind, climate change, yes, versus cocoa, cashew, sesame, and all those stuff. We still have some things that we can actually do. On the issue of climate change, the seasonality of the rain and the irregularity probably will affect the cocoa, right? The land is still there. But don't you think that it's high time we started looking at ways to manage it when the rain is irregular? In Israel, Middle East, they don't have the kind of waters that in form of rain and everything that we have here. Yet the agriculture is one of the best in the world. For me, it's for us to respond to the challenge, which is the best of the bulk of it right now in my observation is the rain, the regularity, and the way it behaves. Can't we find a way of conquering it? And I know we can do some of this victory. The conquering of the Bar Beach. We're all in Lagos years ago. We know what Bar Beach did. He killed one of my friends. He killed him, and many people died. And then it was threatening all those structures on that Ahmadu Bello way.
Absolutely.
Today it was pushed into further in. That is what God expects us to do. We need to find a way of conquering some of these things, at least while we can, before there's a complete cessation of the rain or something due to climate change. And it may not happen, it may just be a cycle because the world is also going a cycle, it's oscillating and everything like that. So I think we should be looking at how to solve some of these challenges rather than thinking. For me, if anybody wants to do well now, we still have the chance before the climate change, whatever. Go plant your cocoa. In 2 years, 2.5 years, you start fruiting, you got to make money. And it will fruit for the next 50 years before it starts declining. So what's your stress? So let's go to the farms, let's conquer the land. We may not have contiguous land of 2,000 hectares and everything, but we can do clusters of farms. And that's the way it is. We do clusters of farms, subsistence, and that's the way cocoa is done anyway. And then you do your thing and you move on. In Nigeria, I learned that 22 states can grow cocoa. We have 36 states. Let everybody now, young person, even at my age, why not? Go and start a farm. One of my friends is about 60. He's trying to do a cocoa farm at 60. Yes, if he has longevity, God give him life. We still eat out of it, super. And they hand it over to his children or the community or whoever. So it's still something which I believe we should not allow. We shouldn't have, some kind of fixation about this thing of, and therefore we are head bound, But there's sustainability strategy on our side in FTN. We're already having to do work with the farmers. Like I said, we're looking at farmer sustainability. We're also looking at how the crop itself, what we can do in partnership with foreign bodies on how we can manage some of these things. We are very sensitive to it, including the issues around the kind of energy we deploy. Green energy, clean energy and all those kind of things. In fact, we have carbon footprints, things that we deal with as well, because some of these things we are responding well, I think.
Okay, so as we begin to wind down on the conversation, what advice would you, you've touched on some of it. You said something about the fact that as a business leader, you must know your business and you must deal with integrity and transparency. But beyond that, what kind of advice do you have for a new business person who is just venturing into business at this point in time?
Okay, thank you. What I would say is, number one, know what you want to do. Be clear in your mind. Be ready to go into it for a long haul. You can't do business as a sprinter. It's a marathon. It's a cycle. It's not full of bed of roses. It has its own stages and milestones. Sometimes you may be lucky if you entered in the season and you make some money, and then you get frustrated in the next season. But that shouldn't mean quitting. You should continue at it. That's what helps you to grow, and you must have the mindset of not a man on a suicide mission. You're on a suicide mission as an entrepreneur where you have the money now and you spend all the money. Once the money is coming, be mindful of keeping it, because tomorrow may not be like today. And invest your money wisely so that you can also have capacity to have what it is to raise funds. One of the things that kills you is, in anything when you're doing business, the financiers want you to have your skin in the business. Okay, it can come in form of your collateral, it can come in form of your personal guarantee. You have to build that. You have to build that capacity by yourself, which means you need to take time to grow. Make sure you are up to speed on what's development in your space. Any business you want to go into, get schooled in it. Sometimes you have to do apprenticeship. You know what that means? I like the Igbo methodology. You go through apprenticeship. In the period of apprenticeship, it's not the time for gratification. In fact, you get all the batteries of this universe. But be ready for it. By the time you are done, you'll be strong, you'll be better. You will have developed muscle. Don't try to jump. If you jump, you will follow the law of gravity. Just grow. When you grow, you have your skeleton and you're standing. That's what I would tell anybody. And with that, you'll be fine. You may not have all the bulks of a Dangote or the Tedola or those kind of people, but you'll be fine. You'll be evergreen, if you know all those things. Know your numbers, and then don't use sentiment to do your business. If friends can be part of it, fine. If they cannot be part of it, better leave them in their space as friends or family members. Things that can affect you or pull you down, you try to avoid them, but be focused. Don't give up in the time of crisis, because help is on the way.
Thank you so much for that. I have a quick question here. I funny enough, I had jotted it down and I forgot. Wemimo Adewuni is saying that, he says, the fear is safety of investment because of rampant herder crisis and theft. I think this person is responding to the fact that you were encouraging that we could backwardly integrate and start our own farms and how valuable it is. I know that people have had situations where farmer herder clashes have made them lose their investment. And if it's a farm that is planting corn, you can recover faster. But if it's a farm that's planting cocoa, it might be really challenging. So what are your thoughts around the farmer herder insecurity challenges across the nation?
Well, this insecurity thing is real. It's real. And I just hope government can really resolve it. I think what the government needs the political will to resolve it, because it is not something that cannot be controlled. Well, again, theoretically, what this administration have put in place, I believe makes sense. If you see people like Dogara speaking, he's speaking about how government's policy is a pin. He's a big time farmer. Some of you don't know, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives. Also, there's some level of exaggeration as well. It shouldn't stop you from going. The farms I'm dealing with right now is in Southwest, and we've not heard anything like farmer others issues so far. Instead, they are in a great alliance, a community, and they are defending themselves together. I mean, I remember there's a farm in Osun State that I see cattle being grazed. They don't disturb the farmers thing. They have a nice. So I believe some of these things true. There's a lot of politics around this issue of farmer herder and the banditry thing that is driving people away from the farms. It is real. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the risk of going about it is fine. And for me, I keep asking myself, it's possible to actually resolve these things by the farmers themselves. You see, if somebody, the elders have a saying, if a child knows how to die, then the parents find the nice
to bury
you know, because I still believe that it's not something that is out of what we can manage and control. You just need a collaboration by the community, and that thing will stop by itself. It's either the animals are dying when they go to the farms, you know what, introduce what you need to introduce. And they can't fight you for that. You do that and you disappear. So when they know that there's no way there, there will be a way. I think we need a political will, both on the side of government and the people. We must say we want to conquer this problem, this challenge, and I'm sure we're going to get over it. It's a phase, but let me be honest with you. You can see recently that there was a time that the noise about farmer-herders relationship was quiet, but suddenly nowadays it's now hearing tells you that some people are driving this thing. That's what I feel. So government should also have the political will to address this thing, be open about it, speak to the people of the country, and then everybody will know, and then to help us to now look for a solution so we can find community solution to this problem. And it is then, why should others make it impossible for us to eat? Why? Why should others go and destroy people's farm? It's unfair. And the people's farm are destroyed should fight it or do something about it. You know, our problem in Nigeria is that when they push us to the wall, instead of us to fight back, we want to bore the hole on the wall and begin to run away. You face it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure without even carrying arms, there are some scientific ways this thing can be achieved. Maybe you deploy some drones, and if any cattle that goes there gets shelled by the drone, invest money in those drones. I don't know, or put some chemicals in the drone. Any stupid animal that gets there, it has some sensors. And then when it sees the animal, there's just that you want human beings not to go there, because that thing may not be able to distinguish between human being behaving like an animal. But if you are a human being behaving like an animal and the drone has to deal with you, so be it. But I think there could be a way. Always there will be a way if you want that way to exist or to happen.
Thank you so much, sir. So I will quickly take this last comment. The lady, that's Onye Conteriba, she says, thank you for that insightful response. That was when you were talking about the issue of artificial intelligence and technology. She says we really do need problem-solving approach rather than succumbing to our challenges. As a final question from me, I would like to find out, how has your listing on the stock exchange helped the growth of FTN Cocoa? Has it in any way helped your story, you know, in terms of visibility, in terms of attracting investors? And if you had to do it all over again, what would you do?
Oops. It's a mixed bag. There's no doubt it has helped us. On top of what we chose to do for ourselves when we were private, it helped us to willy-nilly align with governance, putting processes in place. That's a very good way. You know, there's some things you go through that will make you, whether you like it or not, you will align. And that's good. And that also has its own advantage because it means that you are a potential suitor for, you have suitors who want to come to you, you're a potential bride, because you have your records right. Now, the investors are typically concerned about your governance, your records. That has made it also attractive. It makes them to further trust us, that if these guys are bold enough to come to the exchange, then they don't have anything to hide. So that's a good thing about it. And it has its manifold potentials also. But so far, we've not raised money beyond what we did during the private placement. We've not raised money from the traditional market here. We're going to do, hopefully, at some point in time. And then, of course, because it's a PLC, the cost is high. You know, we are manufacturers. We are sensitive to cost. I will always say that because this fee, that fee, and because of that, people will come after you. I was telling somebody that we have about 45 compliance issues to contend with, just because we're a PLC. Some of them will just come, including local government people. You know, they will also carry their own head too and say, Kiniko. You start wondering what's going on here. Everybody wants you comply here, comply that, comply that. Those are some of the other side that you face. And then downside. Now, if you, in the times of crisis, you begin to get burdened, you know, because you see, the way the public sees you as a PLC, they just think that you have more money somewhere, stored somewhere. That's what many agencies. So if you're a private company, you go on your news and say, I'm sorry, please, they might listen. A PLC, they don't want to listen. You are big. This and that. They want to scapegoat you, you know, all those kind of things. So by and large, summarily, I would say kudos to the NGX. They're doing a good job. The market is vibrant. I mean, portfolio investors are beaming their eyes on Nigeria. They get good returns. They get excited. The market is big in a way. So I would say it's good. It's nice. What about if I would like to go there in future? It depends. Yes. Yeah. And maybe no. In some business that I want to choose to make super private. Because again, you know, the little challenge of the way the shareholders also behave also can be upsetting sometimes. You know what I mean? You know, they begin to act like militants, you know, and that again is has its own side, which you allow the people who run the business to run their business. And what they need to know is records that they're sane and be happy with what they're doing. You know, so a lot of challenges sometimes. But again, I think sanity is coming again in the space. By and large, I'll probably do it again because again, you know, once you're invested and you want to exit, one of the things we are taught at the MBA is when you're doing investment, look at your exit strategy. Okay, and so kudos to NGX, and I thank them for having us in the in the list.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been a very robust conversation. Obviously, if we had a whole day, it's not enough to unpack some of the things you've shared with us today. We're indeed very, very grateful. We thank you for being willing to share from your heart, you know, unvetted, so that we can get a feel of what it is like running businesses in Nigeria. We look forward to many more businesses that are going to come out, you know, and be bold and have big, hairy, audacious goals like yourselves, and make sure that we can put the name of Nigeria on the globe. We wish you all the best in the next phase of FTN Cocoa as you journey ahead. Somebody has their hand raised. We have 3 minutes, Mr. Sheyi. Do you want to say something? You can unmute yourself quickly. Okay, maybe that was just an error. Otherwise, we just want to say very big thank you, sir. We wish
Very
you
much.
and the entire FTN Cocoa all the best in the next phase as you journey ahead with your various investors. Thank you very much, sir. Any
Thank you very
final
much.
all of us, sir?
Well, I would just say Nigeria remains a good destination,
Mm,
blessed opportunities. What is making it look like it's difficult is because of our instant gratification mindset. Let's all try and be good to ourselves. Let's take advantage of the opportunities we have. Foreigners are coming in, they are taking it, they are making it like a
mm.
bandit. Let's be full of integrity. Let's be able to pull funds, crowd funding to do things, and let's be accountable. And I'm sure we're going to enjoy our country. We don't need to go over there and be slaves and be, judged by the color of our skin. It's not. I think it's dehumanizing. So let's
Mm.
all face what we have and deal with it. I'm sure we'll get there. We are going through a phase, but we're going to get to the promised land. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, sir. Thank you
Thank
very much, everyone, for coming. We look forward to having you in another 1 month.